2 weeks away from the start of college football here in state and nationally as well. On Thursday, September the 3rd, Utah State will host Southern Utah. And a big one at Rice-Eccles Stadium as Jim Harbaugh brings Big Blue to Salt Lake. It's going to be the first time we'll see Harbaugh on the sideline in a live game as the coach of Michigan. BYU gets underway that weekend as well. On Saturday, they're at Nebraska. That's a 1:30 Mountain kick time on ABC. So, Gordon, it is now right around the corner.
Real quick question, and we'll get into this later, but do you think that because Harbaugh, it's his first game, is Michigan going to steal the limelight completely away from Utah?
Nationally, absolutely.
Well, the good news for the Utes is if they win, they're going to steal it right back.
I did some digging on Michigan a little bit this morning. I think Utah's going to smash them, quite frankly. I think Utah's going to take it to them. But that's
so it's a best-case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 weeks away. It's right around the corner. Joining us now is a guy that knows a thing or two about this time of year. He's with the New York Jets now, used to be with the University of Utah. He is Trevor Riley, back on the Big Show. Trev, what's up, man?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Doing well. So let's start here before we get to what's going on with you and the New York Jets. 2 weeks away from kickoff now, as Michigan will roll into town on Thursday, September the 3rd. How sick are players right now of just hitting each other, and how ready are you to get on the field to hit somebody else?
Yeah, these are the dog days of camp for when you're in college and in the NFL, but really in college because the whole off season you spend together and you lift together, you run together, and then you get to camp and you spend a few weeks together, and you hit that midpoint. You're like, man, let's just get out there and play. So those guys are itching to get out there and hopefully beat Michigan.
Same thing for you, right? I mean, not just in college, but in the pro. It goes on and on, Trevor. Aren't you just, all right, let's go?
Yeah, I mean, to preseason, especially in the NFL, it's 4 weeks, man. It's a long time. Some teams play 5 preseason games. They play the Hall of Fame game. It just seems like it goes on and on and on, but at least in college, you don't have preseason games. That helps it out probably a little bit. But for a lot of the veterans, especially, the preseason just is very, very hard, and it just drags on kind of.
So Trev, reasonable expectations. We've asked you this before, but a great mind once said radio is not linear, but that line is becoming very linear. If you had a message for Ute fans as we embark on the start of the season as far as what reasonable expectations should be if health remains across the board, what would you say?
I think they can win 10 games. I really think so. I think that's a reasonable expectation based on the talent they have. The big question mark is going to be, are they going to be able to make plays down the field on offense? I'm telling you, that's the only thing. They got a great running game, good offensive line, solid quarterback, great defense. Are they going to be able to stretch the field offensively? And if they can do that, then the sky's the limit, really. I see USC as probably the only team that they are really going to struggle with in the South.
Let me ask you about that, because as a defensive player, how important is it, not just scoreboard-wise, I'm talking about mental-wise, for mental health for the defense, to have the offense give you a blow every once in a while and be productive in that regard so that you don't have to make every great play to set up scores, field goals, or on turnovers, whatever, field position stuff.
The 3 and outs demoralize the defense, especially if you've just gotten off the field and you've made them do a 3 and out, or they sustained somewhat of a drive, but you got them into a punt situation, then your offense goes out and does a 3 and out, or maybe only gets 1 first down. It's demoralizing. Ask any defensive player, they'll tell you that's one of the number one things they don't like to see are short drives or no drives at all. That just kills you. So if the youth can have some if they can be better on third down, I think that if you ask Coach Witt, that's probably one thing they like to be better at on offense than they were last year, is to be a better third down team offensively. If they can improve in that aspect, I really, really think that'll help the entire team play better and hopefully win more football games.
You ever miss it? I know you got your head down, you're focused on making a living, you're focused on being a professional athlete, you're focused on being a Jet. Do you ever miss being a Ute?
Yeah, I mean, they say once you leave college, that's the last real team you've ever been on. I know that's kind of weird, but the thing about college is you're with those guys for a lot of times 5 years. And in the NFL, it sometimes can be different on a week-to-week basis. So the real aspect of the team as far as being together as one unit it's a different element in college as it is in the NFL. I still talk to the guys I played college ball with, and we still carry on about the old days. So when I'm done with the NFL, when that road ends, I'll probably be back in Utah hanging out with my college buddies.
You know, that's kind of cool for you to be a part of a fairly proud defensive tradition at Utah. And I don't know how the program does it, but it just seems like every year they load in more great defenders. As Spence said one time, you know, who is going to replace this guy? Well, who's going to replace this guy? Well, there's always the next guy.
Yeah, Coach Witt has built himself a program there defensively. You talk about the amount of NFL players that Utah's put into the league defensively, and not just NFL players, but good ones. It's just crazy to think about. And you can attribute that to the system, to the recruiting, but also, like you said, the tradition. When guys go out there and have their first meetings with the defensive staff there, they know that Utah is a defensive program. And I think a lot of guys who are maybe athletes, meaning they come in as either or a receiver or a DB or a running back or linebacker, you see them gravitating more to the defensive side of the football at Utah. That's probably why. It's because Utah is a defensive team and it's a defensive program.
Trev, I want to get your thoughts on a story over the last 48 hours. Dr. Hill had some comments to Lee Benson in the D News about the rivalry game, about BYU-Utah. And just kind of paraphrasing, he said Ute fans, for the most part, are okay with the rivalry game going away for a little bit. And, you know, in my opinion, I don't think he's necessarily wrong. I don't know exactly scientifically how many Ute fans want the game to be played, how many don't. But I do get a general sense that there is a growing number of Utah fans that don't really care if they play BYU or not. Your take on that and your take on whether or not the game should be played every year?
If BYU gets into the Power 5 conference, then they should play the game every year. If they don't get into a conference, then there really isn't anything for Utah to gain by playing BYU. They're already winning the battle on the recruiting field. They're already winning the battle on the TV. They're winning the battle financially. So unless BYU can get into the Big 12 or the Big 10 or even the Pac-12, which I don't see ever happening, then I wouldn't play them. I'd like to play them, but if I was an AD, I'd be thinking that we don't have any need to play these guys. All it can do is hurt us. It doesn't really help us that much. We may lose a few kids to BYU, but we're not. The tide's a turn. Now, we, I would say, have the juice when it comes to recruiting kids in state to either BYU or Utah.
So for you, it's about the recruiting because other P5 teams are scheduling BYU. So, I mean, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is you have a lot to lose as Utah. You lose to BYU, that's when people start asking for your job, not only as a coach, but as an AD. When you lose to BYU, you start losing recruits, which makes your team not as good. So if Utah has to deal with BYU from a position of strength, position of power, because we do have the upper hand. We're in the Pac-12 conference. We have more money now coming in. We have more exposure. We're now becoming more nationally known on the national scene. So when BYU gets into the Big 12 or the Big 10, then I think they should play every year. I think that that puts them on equal level with Utah, and I think that would make the game more interesting and it would make it more for Utah to gain by playing the game instead of playing them if they're not in the Big Power 5 conference.
So you don't care about 100 years of tradition, huh?
Whoa.
Hey, man. Spence said a wise man once said something about radio. A wise man once said, it's all about the money. And that's the bottom line. It's all about the dollars. And it's a sad reality of college football. Think of it this way. What does Utah have to gain by playing BYU? Can anyone come up with a decent reason for why, if you were Chris Hill, you would want to schedule BYU? What would be the reason?
My response to that is that from a competitive standpoint, obviously BYU and Utah were in the same conference, but when BYU had a 19-2 record against the Utes, what did BYU have to gain by playing the Utes? These things, in my opinion, they fluctuate. They're cyclical, you know, and so I think that's why one reason that I hold that game is important, because everything else in college football changes, but certain things don't or shouldn't. And rivalry games, I don't care whether it's in this state or other states, should not depend on who's making the most in the current dollar. You know, to me, there are certain things that are more important than that, especially since it's important to the people of this state.
The only problem with that argument is that Utah and BYU were in the same conference for 40 years.
Right. Nice.
And the only thing also that you would say is that the game has changed, man. No longer are coaches making $60,000-$70,000 a year. You got coaches making $2-3 million a year, and ADs making upwards of $1 million a year. Those guys, they have to be responsible to donors. They have to be responsible to alumni. They have to be responsible to the board of trustees, the president. So if you go out there and you lose to BYU every year, and that perpetuates a downward spiral in recruiting in state, and you start losing more games, then you start thinking to yourself, why the heck would we play these guys? We don't have anything to gain. And we don't have to play them. I mean, that's the reality. If you're talking about a reality now, in a perfect world, they would play. But like I said before, the game has changed. It's no longer an amateur sport.
Well, it turns out that
the minor leagues
that they are going to play. Apparently, at least over the next 6, 7, 8 years, they're going to play every year.
Trev Gordo's had a rather emotional 48 hours with this story. Just so you know.
No, I'm just pointing out that side of the argument. That's all.
Yeah, I understand, but as me, I would like to see them play BYU. But the dollars and cents and the bottom line and the reality is, you look at Texas and Texas A&M. How are they not playing every year? That's a crazy thing to think about. I know that Spence and Gordon, you guys were younger, they played every single year. Now, I don't think they play anymore, do they? Correct me if I'm wrong, but they went to separate conferences and they don't play every year. So just the game is changing, man. I mean, you see it changing with the money, with the salaries of the coaches and the TV deals. You're going to start seeing some tradition stuff go away. That's why you see things like Notre Dame changing their jerseys. Gordon, I bet you 30 years ago you would have thought they would have never changed anything about their jerseys. And now, because of recruiting, because of exposure, these old school things are starting to have to change a little bit.
Yeah, I track that. You don't see Notre Dame and USC not playing. You don't see Florida and Florida State not playing. Some of these traditions can be held on to, and having talked to the people around here, it seems like it's important. You know this, Trevor. You got a red flag out in front of someone's house, and their next door neighbor has a blue flag. You got people who are in the same PTA together who are blue and red.
Don't bring PTA into this.
You got people in the same work office. You got people at the same church. You got people in the community as a whole. So. Anyway.
The only thing I would say to that is, if we look just across the mountains, the Colorado State rivalry. Colorado State's been beating up on Colorado for about 4 years now. Colorado is one of the worst programs in the entire country, Mountain West or not, Pac-12 or not. Just think if that Colorado could get an extra 2 or 3 kids a year to go to Colorado instead of Colorado State because of that game. That may be the difference in winning a game or two a season.
Well, why run scared, Trevor? I mean, you're afraid your rival's going to beat you?
Can I play this interview?
I'm sorry.
Like I said, you're talking about big money, man. You're talking about people's livelihoods. You're talking about a shot at the national championship. The Utah loses to BYU. I mean, that can set us back from having a shot at getting into the playoffs.
Well, you could make the argument. You could make the argument, though, Trevor. If you're not good enough to beat BYU, you're not going to be in the national championship chase. Oh, sorry.
I mean,
us.
You're. Yeah, I mean, you could say that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to if you win your conference and if you have a good non-conference schedule, then you get in.
Well, Trev, thanks for stopping by to chat with Gordon today. We always appreciate it. Next week we'll talk about, I don't know what you're doing, but unfortunately we're out of time.
Should we talk?
Stay healthy.
We never got around to Gino getting pumped.
I wonder why that. Oh. I wonder why that's the case. Hey, Trev, stay healthy. Good luck tomorrow. We'll chat next week.
Hey, no problem, guys.
Appreciate that. Trevor Riley. If you missed Trevor's conversation with Gordon, you can log on to 1280thesun.com. I have like 5 questions in my notes I was going to ask Trevor.
Who's our next guest?
Let's see. Ross Jones at 5.
Okay.
I need you for that one. You gotta be around.
Have at it, brother.
No, you got to be around for that one.
Sorry.
Rob Mahoney?
Yeah. Where's Chris Sheridan when you need him?
Rob Mahoney, the poor man, came on every week, was always on time, and Gordon just runs him down. Coming up tomorrow, we have Rob Mahoney. Yay. Do you have that?
That's not the way I meant it. I was
Wait,
pretty excited.
do you have the extended version of that?
Heaven help us, really. Yeah.
Do you feel like you owe Trevor a public apology after that? No buts?
Well, I've been
in the apology?
apologizing to everybody else this week. I might as well.
You kind of ran him down, man.
Well, I'm just presenting the other side to what he was saying. Look, if is it really all about money? Is that really what it all is? Is it really pathetic?
No, it's not all about it, but there's a lot there, and I don't think Trevor is necessarily wrong, but I also think you have to understand that's a former Ute who wanted to play at BYU and was told by Bronco Mendenhall, you might be able to walk on. and then he went up to Salt Lake City and became one of the best players in the state, if not the best player in the state his senior year.
But when we're talking about the rivalry game, and you hear a former Ute come on and say, yeah, but you really don't want to play BYU because if you lose to them, it could really hurt you. And, then BYU fans are all listening to that going, geez, are you really that afraid of the Cougars?
Yeah, that's a spin, though. That's BYU fan spin. I know,
but that's what it
really
sounds like.
Fear? I mean, you think it's afraid to play BYU? You think Utah's afraid to play BYU?
I'm just going off... I'm just going off what Trevor said.
Well, he just said there's nothing to gain, is what he said.
If you lose, there is something to be gained.
But don't you think there's probably a tinge of Ute pride coming out there of a kid that played for Utah who never lost to BYU and was told by the head coach of BYU that he wasn't good enough to make the team, but maybe he could walk on?
Well, for a guy who never lost to BYU, he sure sounds scared of losing to him now.
So you think Trevor Riley is afraid
for his alma
Utah
mater
to play BYU?
I don't know. I just look, people here, are you kidding? It's a game, it's a big, big game. I understand that Utah plays USC and UCLA, and those are cool. And believe me, having lived in LA, I know that's cool. It's cool for all of us to be able to watch those games happen. But the more cool, the better.
You're all about the cool.
Yeah, because...
I mean, we know that.
Because if you have USC, UCLA, and Oregon, and you have all that good stuff going on, then one other week, why do you want a week with Southwest Missouri? You want BYU there because it's another week.
Here's a piece of good news for you. Maybe you can calm down now. They're gonna play for 6 straight years. That's what it looks like.
Well, and I just want to make sure that.
And who do we have to thank for that?
If I have offended anyone out there, please.
No,
I'm sorry.
More Monson bombs. This time in the direction of Trevor. Like seriously, at some point, everyone Austin emails is going to be like, "No thanks, dude. Not coming on the show."
I'm just going to say, do you want to join Spence Check-Its? And then they'll come on and they'll be like, wait, I wasn't told.
And then
Gordon
they'll come on and just talk to Gordon apparently for 20 minutes.
Do you want me to give you
So you don't care about 100 years of tradition, huh, Trevor?
I'll give you a whole list of people who would be happy to come on.
We have been waiting for you to do that. It's so funny how he says that. He's like, I'm actually great friends with Bill Pulaski. I'm like, get him on the show, man.
I don't have his number with me. It's in my Rolodex.
Did I get him on the show or not?
You did.
That was awesome.
You should be doing that all the time. I mean, it shouldn't all be on Austin. If it's all on Austin, we get all right.
Rob Mahoney.
Table scraps.
We get Rob Mahoney and we get Ross Jones, who joins us at 5.
Mahoney's a fine guest.
Then why'd you run him down?
I didn't mean it. It was just one of those things where I was trying to say yay, but it came out as yay.
It came out as just,
yay.
Yeah, that. Rob Mahoney next. Yay.
That's not the way I meant it.
What a jerk that guy is.
I meant it like yay.
No, you got to sell our guests or people are going to be like, why am I tuning in if the host doesn't even want to talk to him?
Rob Mahoney's a terrific guest. I was...
Yay. Eeyore. We're all going to die.
Okay, everybody at home, play along. Everybody swirl your index finger around. Just swing it around.
Not again.
Just go ahead.
No, I'm not doing it. I did this once. I did this once. I'm not doing it again.
Austin, do it.
Make Austin do it. I'm not doing it.
I'm twirling.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Yeah.
Yahoo.
I'll try and fire up over here.
So, if you're interested in the radio business, send your resume to spencer.checkits@1280thezone.com. More on the other side. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Gordon will chat with Ross Jones. But up next, Bronco? No, I'm looking for new
If there's time, yeah. Bronco up next.
Bronco may be up next. We'll see. 1280, 97.5 The Zone.